So, thank you so much for inviting here. It's a truly privilege and honor to be part of this sessions, and I probably have been doing various lectures across the globe, but it's first time in Calcutta, and this is something that I'm really excited being also close to the family and this case. So, my lecture is basically the idea of understanding of ephemeral to perennial and architecture for many, because our practice is diversifications of various kind of work. But I start with this practice because we have been, as a family, is uprooted from Bangladesh, and my father settled and their family settled over here. So while going through all our, social ideology in terms of carrying forward in our life, which always kind of carry forward those kind of agony and pain, and it reflects always in our process, part of life, and reflects in our projects. And while generally I give a presentations, I start with Dharma. It's a Bengali word, which is kind of dedication, which is to my father. He's a very renowned mathematician and scientist. But also the idea of architecture is Charles Korea, and which just because of this Korea, my trajectory from mathematics to come to architecture, and I came to I was coming with my father to Jadavpur University and dropped down from bus to seeing this building. This is the only building by Charles Korea in Calcutta. It's not documented yet in Charles Korea Foundations. It's in Palikan Circular Road. It is 1962 when he made Monica Korea. He made this house, and when we organized Charles Korea Memorial Lecture first time, and Rahul Malhotra and Monica Korea came to Calcutta, and I told that this is the building that I could not enter in 22 years, but this is the building because I am in architecture. So the owner stayed in London. He called the owner and opened this building for me, and that is the first time we entered, few architects, and inside is an absolutely changed. Because we have not seen this building, it's an absolutely fascinating residential building by Charles Korea, which is people know about city center, but not this particular building. Also, when we talk about Bengal, and Bengal is always about a kind of idea of land, culture, and it's always reflected through various textile and other media of art, and we always feel that this is the kind of part of the Bengal that we always belongs to. And the land of lost opportunity when we talk about, we see it's just to create a disclaimer, because I got a call from Imamia and said that we are politically neutral. I think that the architecture without politics doesn't happen. And why I say that lost of opportunity and whatever I say, it's in my personal comments, it's not an organizational comments, because we have been gone through this political biasness in terms of architecture, where the state-sponsored architecture becoming always kind of the secondary, tertiary, and then 35 years of this regime, and then what we hoped, and then we lost an opportunity. And second is the DNA never changed in the state of that things. And this is the websites where the government announces that if you have a blue and white color, that you get a kind of a write off of all taxes. And eventually, all the government buildings is been blue and white today, because the identification that there is no challenge has been done from neither public body, neither in bureaucracy, neither everything. You need to understand that today's architecture, which is what you're talking about, the government is the biggest real estate company. The biggest real estate company. They have the most money and the opportunity to create a public infrastructure for us, where we are completely lagging behind it. So what we have actually done enormous research, is that just we can't go through it, all those things. The all building has been white, blue and white for the last 14 years. There will be a 216 type of bus stand has been done in Howrah and Calcutta. There is no synergy. And anybody can do that. In our climate, there will be a multiple AC bus stop has been made. And also, today, all the AC has gone. And I'll create a much more interesting story how we create those kind of interventions in terms of changing. And also, you see the city is becoming a kind of a toys which has been making and spending money over across the city. And it's not happening not only in the states, it's happening everywhere. And we are spending so much of money rather than making it such a beautiful public infrastructure or the building. But there is a state of hope because the Bengal, which produces one of the most beautiful Nobel laureate and talent in our country, and we feel that this is the kind of hope that we can keep going on. And architecture for many, when we talk about, because it's very important, because when we have a practice, and practice has many very interesting roles. We do a public projects, we do a personal projects, and how you influence as a public at a large in terms of true architecture, that's important. And the celebrations we found, because when we passed out and we found out, the subject as an architecture, the profession as an architect is a most, less respected into the community. Nobody knows what architecture really means and what really reflects. Also, what architects supposed to do, people doesn't have any idea of the sense. And so the idea of celebrations is always become a very, very important role in our life, in our culture. So why in the childhood we have been growing up and seeing celebrations and pandals and everything, that we found out that there is a very strong sense of understanding in terms of the idea of the celebrations and connected to regime in terms of public at a place is very important, which is very, very connected in a global south. So I have requested Alejandro to come to our city, and he spent it five days, and he also felt the similar kind of vibes that even in Latin America has that. So the power of impermanence is a very powerful element in our process, because we have been seeing Durga Puja as a pandal, as a celebrations, and what is the opportunity is that in an ephemeral space become a kind of celebrations of people's life. So this ephemeral spaces has been designed by various peoples, and there'll be no architects or an initiative has been done yet on that point of time, when I've done in 2012 and a design in my village. So this particular space has been designed in Behala Notun Dol. This is the first time I agreed to design a public pavilions, and I felt that I need to change the whole idea of how to design this thing. So what I have done, generally if you see in a public celebrations and a pandal happens, it has been closed by all sides and people are working for last 6 months, 7 months. So what we have done as a studio, we actually try to make a module to develop the design and make in 16 days to make it an installation art. And it is only an 2 feet by 2 feet, 3 feet by 3 feet, 4 feet by 4 feet cubicle as an MS structure, and then unconnected like that. But what happened that if you see a pandal and pavilion which is happening in every year after year, there is no fate after 10 days. And people forget and people start thinking the next one. The first one that I've thought about, what is the next of this? So I ideate there'll be 10 installations, what could be an permanency in terms of that. So when we have actually designed these things, so to make sure that there'll be no door or window closed by the surrounded people, and there'll be no disturbance for the people, because it's a celebration of a neighborhood. And that is why it is a very interesting way that we can create this module of this celebrations, and a pavilion has been designed. And then so on that we bring the gods outside the pavilion and put it outside. So it's fundamentally is a kind of thought process that we portray to the public, that how that pavilion and a pandal can be elaborated in a neighborhoods. And it's important that how we done this. In 16 days this pavilion has been made.
And eventually, this process has been created. So what is the opportunity in a pavilion? So you have to understand that through an architecture, you might be doing in a many fantastic public building or maybe a private house. You have a very limited opportunity to showcase and influence to the public as a large. One pavilion in 10 days can actually, at 17 lakhs people can show. So it is even on 1% people of that can be influenced through your architecture, to the process, to the idea of what you believe that can actually goes to the as an osmosis. It's really kind of impact on that process. So the ephemeral to perennial, when it comes from an impermanence to a permanence, how you deal with. So this same material, the same box, we made it in a permanent in a Newtown, Calcutta as a permanent park. And what impacted that, today you really have a long queue to go inside, and this become a 1,000 Instagram page today as a public at a large to being a part of it. It's all about that how this kind of a public installations can be part of a permanency and become a part of a public life. So the most interesting part is how the central principle of a critical regionalism is surely a commitment to the place rather than the space. And that's a very important word by Kenneth Frampton, as one of the architectural critics in the world. And the happy works is also a kind of a derivative of the idea what influences the people, which is actually we have thought so we are discussing in a COVID time with the Chief Secretary and myself, and what we can do for the public, because public is locked up. So we had a module of 6 different typology of a small working pods. That working pod can be a garage, working pod can be a roof, or working pod can be and can be completely a new building. So what we have done throughout this Bengal, that we have created 6 modules. The first modules will be a kind of a greenfield projects, which is a 700 square feet land that we created, 1,000 square feet in working module, where people can rent out the time space and start working on it. And in that way, we have done a very interesting small square up plan with only 20 lakhs rupees budget, where we can actually give it to a public and a neighborhood, and neighborhood can actually rent it out to revenue generations. Today, this is one of the most interesting revenue generations of the government today, and has been spread out only in various places across city and outside the city. And it has a different module. So we create a kind of module that this how can be generated even in personal people's revenue generation models in terms of that, but there is a guideline to it. This is the so there will be a ground plane, and the secondary plane you can step up and goes up there, and there is a multiple module has been already seen, and the color has been created in such a way that is like an urban signage. So you really don't need a kind of advertisement. People start thinking that this YOLO means there is an happy work, so you can go and 1 hour rent, pay 60 rupees and spend time. And also what happened, we have never thought that this become today's government is one of the most interesting venue of matchmaking area. So what happened that the 4 workstation has been removed, and there will be 1 meeting room has been added, and this meeting rooms has been completely blocked throughout the month. So this is the internal courtyard. And this internal courtyard also run by an NGO, which is also a government-sponsored NGOs, and they run that all the happy works across Bengal. And this is the inside, the light, the graphics that is a kind of architectonics idea that we actually worked on. So Gongalari Pavilion is also a very interesting idea. When Mr. Neotia came to me and he said that, we want a temple as a public realm, and it has to be in a Raichok on an idea of bank. And the biggest challenge is, your plot is flooded 2 months. So the idea of architecture as a temple, also in the reflections of what kind of materiality that we can use, also what kind of idea of the public plaza that can be used is a very challenging. So this is the Ganges, and there's a canal which goes inside, and there will be a boat also that the villagers use the boats. And what happened is the temple he want to make for a public plaza and right hand side to give it to the nearby villages, and it completely flooded in the monsoon times every year. So the whole temple has been elevated in such a way that it actually acts as a public plaza for throughout the year, and whenever the water flows as a high tide, it goes inside and then goes back. So it's a very interesting dynamic platform that how you work upon. So what happened that when we design and then we supposed to do some kind of landscape, the whole land has been flooded. So that's the whole idea, and that is why we have designed this whole place. But it's interesting that when you connected those places as a public realm and then connect to the spiritual area, this works very well. And today, this is very, very important part of the public place. This is not a space, it's become a place for the whole area of Raichok, that people gather in the evening time, in the afternoon time, and they conglomerate over here. So this space gives this opportunity to the public as a large, as being a part of that. So they start owning that spaces, and that's the beauty of architecture. And what we have done is we just use the local brick, local masons. We have not imported any materials. All those things have been made and available over there, and we made those things. So this is how this whole area is elevated, and it's simple exposed concrete, and we have just reused some of the stones which has there. They have many sites across Raichok, so we use those areas. So this is the public plaza, which also are connected to the main road which goes to the Ganges, and you go over there and there'll be a kind of spaces that hold that spaces and then connected to the temples. So also it's very crafted in terms of idea of architecture, in terms of how the shutterings and exposed concrete has been done. So this process goes to the kind of sitting arena, and then other side is the temple, and people keep sitting over there. It's becoming a kind of living room space over there, and it is an authentic way to design a temple. The temple Garbhagriha has been not done in a single steel concrete. It's made with a complete brick, and you can't use a steel, you can't use a concrete. So it's a corbelling effect. So basically and traditionally how you make the temple, we made this temple with the traditional people over there, and who actually generally use a panchayat drain or a 3 lakhs rupees house, and on that we train them and make those things ever. This is the inside view of that Garbhagriha and the priest, and how the public plaza has been taken. So a lot of marriage ceremony, lot of other activity happened over there in this kind of plaza. So designing within cultural ecosystems, which is also in a kind of Shantiniketan. So recently we completed this projects, and then we are fascinated with Shantiniketan. We all know about Shantiniketan. I don't have to elaborate anything. And the interesting find out of while we'll be studying in Vishwabharati as a university, we found out that the university doesn't have a master plan. It's a beauty of the master plan is that wherever there is no tree, Rabindranath Tagore has made some small building, and it's a meandering path you connected to the buildings, and that is why if you see the organic growth of Vishwabharati is completely a porous, and that porosity has given an opportunity to figure it out how this kind of influences can be interact with our idea of ungated community. So Bandhan School of Business is actually a 17-acre plot which is a nursery. And it is also an example for our studio to have a hold for 11 years of patience to make this project. So this picture has been taken 11 years back when it is a nursery, but it gone through multiple changes, land issues and other things, and finally 8 months back we got the picture. So the idea of Bandhan as an idea of microfinancing, how they generate microfinancing and lend the money and take the money from the customers, we try to bring them back into the ecosystem of that. So the whole idea of landscape has been taken to the roof of that building, and make sure that we try to as minimal as possible air conditioning use over there, because Shantiniketan also temperature goes up. So the whole nursery on top of the roof. So the idea of ecosystem is the people who are actually in part of the nursery will be part of the ecosystem, and they feed the whole canteen eventually when they run. And that is why the whole the business model has been created, and also the architecture has been evolved on that. So what is happening is we create a lot of microclimate into the house. So people, you get a moment inside the building, you have a complete 5 to 7 degree temperature down inside the places. And those multiple sections also created a tapestry of bricks also made with the local people, and inside the microclimate give you an comfort for as a students and teachers to part of that whole process. So these are the various places that we captured over there. So also the idea of organic growth has been taken in terms of organic planning, and also this is in southwest. We actually blocked those kind of a southwest area as a solid space. We use those people locally who are part of the Bandhan customer and also is a craftsman who can actually work over here and go give back the money to Bandhan. And this is the ideations which we have actually ideated that how this nursery be part of the whole building. And today this is the building where the complete roof is part of is almost in cultivation field, and people are working across the whole year and feeding the whole institute from there. So so sorry. Yeah, so the local people has been part of the whole process as ecosystems, and while I'll be always going through Shantiniketan, I always visit in a tribal village, and I see how the meandering spaces of magic of those kind of spaces influences me in terms of architecture, and also in terms of landscapes. I try to bring inside to outside how those kind of an modernist architecture can be also reflects the joy of connecting people. And that's important for me in terms of the idea of space, idea of the crafts, and idea of people who will be involved in this kind of process. This is the auditorium block. This is the kind of meandering spaces through the forest, and you go to canteen block, lecture block, and the hostel block over there. And through the microclimate, you keep walking through this, and is always under shadows and a very temperature less. If the temperature is outside and 43, you find out at 32, 35 within that. And the joy of working with them, it's an immense, and that's what we try to make over there through architecture. So these are the beautiful places that eventually grown up into the spaces of place. And the hostel block also, and very interesting, this is the entrance, which also gives us a layers of connecting places, and it has not a brick cladded, it is completely paint, and also a layer of balconies of each individual rooms has been created. Also the peripheral spaces has been created at a buffer as a corridor, so the temperature on southwest doesn't hit the rooms, so we have a very much less heat loads on the rooms inside. These are the inside spaces. The spaces which connected the staircase, which is completely open, porous, and the nature can actually goes inside. And that's a kind of idea of the hostel block, which is connected to the main block over there. This is the campus stay. So there is a guest block on the campus stay, which is completed recently. It's in Shonajuri. This is the left hand side Shonajuri, which is a very tiny 3 bedrooms campus stay. People can book and stay there. And this is the most closer. So the outside is a simple block which have a queues that there is a slope into that area of backside, and the queue is in the front, so the slope roof goes inside, and then you open up those places, and then the farming has happened over here, and the Shonajuri is connected to the main interesting courtyard, and you close by, so the hostel have a complete privacy, and this guest house is a complete privacy. Nobody from the hostel can see this. And the moment you inside, you have a very small courtyard, which also kind of influence from the tribal, how they paint it in their houses, the borders, the windows, from windows to corridors, corridor to rooms, all are open together. So that's what we try to create those ideas. So these are the kind of connection that we created from bedroom to corridor, corridor to courtyard, courtyard to the terrace, and then connected to Shonajuri. So sleeping on a bedroom, so you still can connect that the forest that already exists. That's some kind of entrance, inside spaces, which completely kind of inside those spaces and hold that spaces from outside. So Artshila also very interesting that we have recently designed, recently means almost 2.5 years back, and it's an interesting story, but I rather it is only as 4,900 square feet of area of land, and so we just interventions of a 3-bedroom villa that has been already designed, and this 3-bedroom villa become a kind of a gallery space of Artshila in Shantiniketan, and we changed that paradigm in terms of the idea of the space. So I think the video talks about very interesting.
Artshila is a very interesting propositions. When I got a call from Sanjeev Kumar that they bought a house in Shantiniketan and wanted to convert to a cultural hub, and then he revealed, 22 years back, I only designed that house.
So the beauty of a villa scale.
So the idea is to retrofit the idea of spaces of galleries, cultural centers, canteen, all those spaces within that smaller building of 3 BHK villa. 3 agenda we worked on. One, there'll be several trees in this kind of villa, so we want to keep each and every one. We don't want to break the building. And third, we try to create the structure as a kind of backbone, then kind of extensions, creating canopies and change the functions of the gallery and cultural hub. So we take the cues from the slopes and bringing down almost in stitching and steel roofing systems on the frontal canopy, and that become a kind of arena of multiple cultural hub. Then landscape has become an interesting sitting, and inside all bedrooms become a gallery. So we open up some walls and stitch to a steel structure, and that become a contiguous process of a gallery and exhibition spaces. Today we feel proud because the idea of flexibility, the idea of adaptability is the most key part of this particular project, and we try to keep this building to breathe with natural trees and the essence of the multiple artists and talents who can use this building in various ways.
So Kalabani is in kind of another adaptive reuse that recently we have completed, and that's in also Kolkata. It's a very interesting place called Sabhumi, and interestingly, this has been exactly I'm part of that particular design with Praveen Mitro when I was 1996. So I was intern and I was designing a food court with Praveen Mitro, and exactly after 27 years, Mr. Neotia told me, can you change the whole food court to a museum? So that's a part of the process. So we have a 4 block. Now we are designing the museum of that whole space. And he said that imagine you don't break that your guru's building, because he will come back to you and make you slap. So make sure that keeping that sense of the building that we have made. So it's a very interesting adaptive reuse that we have done. So this is the west block. So each block has been crafted, stitched in a different way and cut it together and make the basic foundation is that, but there'll be a lot of additions and other things has been done. So it was a food court and a backyard which has been not used for last 20 years. It has been converted right now as a plaza, and already the Nilkant Chaya's first inaugural Doshi's presentation has been made over here. Recently the India story has been done over here. So these are the spaces which is exactly on when we started, and we converted these spaces over there. So this is the old spaces where it's a redundant spaces that we changed to over there. Again, this is the past and present, how the one single space as a food court has been converted into this kind of spaces. This is right now, we changed, and the rest of the other blocks we are changing as a museum. So this place is completely kind of evolved as a part of the sense of what we cannot break, and I have an allergy of breaking a building. So I try to be a part of that whole space and try to figure it out how this existing building can be figured out a very interesting way. That's a Kalavani. And that entrance plaza and other things has been actually created recently. So those spaces, it is the first exhibition of Nilkant Chaya's projects, which has been converted into an art galleries. So also Sanctuary Pavilion is also kind of adaptive reuse. Quickly, I just gone through it and then go to the last stage of my presentations. It's also a kind of experience center that has been designed for a real estate company. But interestingly, all the materials, whatever we used, use structures, steels, glass, has been also keeping in mind that it will be completely reused for the main real estate projects. And we actually backward calculations. So what are the materials and glasses that will be actually goes to the real estate projects? On that material and sizes, we start working over there. So this is right now in Sanctuary as an experience pavilion, which is a temporal project, which is probably last for 4 years. And that each and every material, except the foundations, goes to the main building, which we have actually completely back calculated. So this is how this project has been inside and kind of creating a forest. And this is the outside view. This is in Calcutta, so people can visit on that kind of project. Will be an illustrations which shows that each and every materials of that particular projects which will be reused eventually in the main building. So the peri-urban puncture is one of the most important part in our practice, which is a part of Bajberia, and I am from Bajberia, which is 62 kilometers away. And because I'm born and brought up, and I've be part of all those kind of social, cultural, economic shift, and that practicing in India is always challenging, and we questioned ourselves that when we practicing architecture or something on what we can offer to a place, which is basically there is no architectural interventions has happened. So the idea of place of mind, idea of social fabric, which I've been seeing and feeling all together, is very important for me, because I've been running an football academy for last 35 years on my almost in class 8. And still it's running, and today we tied up within the National Club of Mohun Bagan and other things. But that really reflects in our practice, because how we as socially and culturally, contextually connected together in terms of the idea of spaces. So this we have designed in 2012, and everybody knows this project. This has been a bamboo pavilion, has gone to across the world, but that changes the idea of understanding being an architect, being an as a professions, and that influences in many projects. This 10 projects has been part of the set exhibitions that what happened and before COVID, but now it's 17 projects that we are working on it. And eventually this one pavilion has influences so many people, not only as a people of cultural institutes or a government or as an influential people, also how you navigate a government projects is a completely different things. So that one influence has impacted several projects over across the country and also working across the shared neighborhoods. So what is happening, we are still mapping in terms of books, in terms of research, in terms of one project, how it influences a multiplicity in terms of the idea of people as a whole, in terms of as a public realm, as an influencer, and also as a public, as what they are taking it as in future. So this is the Nanantala Thakur Dalan. It's a community center. It's only a budget of 4 lakhs rupees and some simple spiritual space that at the community ground that we have created in terms of the idea of architecture with simple precast concrete, with made by a local people who doesn't know even without a drain. So we make sure that this temple has become a kind of epitome of their cultural institute. So what happened that there is no idol. So what happened, this spiritual space is kind of evoked with a kind of sense of idea of architecture as a spiritual space, and people start taking those spaces in different way. So what happened that the bench is actually a beautiful place where people sleep because they don't have AC. They come to the early morning on the summer time to sleep over there. They feel peace. So they start owning those spaces. The lady who every day pour water as a sacred idea of the spirituality, and that is what the idea of architecture is. And eventually the priest who actually gave an absolutely photogenic shot to an wallpaper magazine who were the London people who came to here. He said that give me a shot. So he's so proud that somebody from London came to here to shoot on front of his temple. And the beautiful part of that, while we'll be doing all those things in the workshops, is also, and this guy is an inner political goons. And one of my influencers told me that he's a magician in the wood, and you please involve him. So the starting point of involving him to a kind of workshop is started with giving some of our work to him. And it started with a small workshops, and eventually today we have 3 workshops which actually not only produce our own furnitures and a process and shutterings and other things. This become a local livelihood for more than 100 people and their families. And that process of making this workshop is part of our process. This workshop is an extension of our studio, which also and part of very simple structures. And it has 4 portals of 6 meter height. That portal hold the whole 10,000 square feet structure made by us and the structure done by us. And it's magical because it's in front there is a complete lake, and there is ventilations. So people, the wind comes from the water body with a cool air, and it's a very simplest structure that done by us. And it's a part of an orchard that also we own, and there'll be organic food. That organic food goes to the workers. They feed. So it's a complete ecosystem that we do. And interestingly, when cyclone and Riyash happened, that we keep trying to create some kind of interesting structure for the Sundarban and proposed to the government. And of course, the government has completely refused to do that, any kind of bamboo structure. They want everything in concrete, even a farthest way in a temple, island in the Sundarban. So what we have done, we studied in Sundarban and seen that the flood is the most devastating things in the village can happen. Even the storm can actually break your house, you can make the house, but the flood is devastating. So what we have done, because we completely understood that there is a possibility that things cannot happen through the government, so we made a complete and mock-up of a rescue pavilions in our own front, and which made with the bamboo, and it's a pure complete bamboo with a complete structural stability in terms of idea that we made a simulations of 200 kilometer speed that it can goes any kind of torsions or not, and it's made with the local people in such a way that we can test, and eventually the first tester is our studio. We did the picnic over there, and so this is the kind of always work which we keep doing it. And the society hall is also a kind of an influence that this society hall has been isn't done by a sanitary engineer by KMDA, 2 crore 64 lakhs, completely refused 3 years because some political people are taking for cuts. Then the local people asked me that, Abin, can you help me that the money will go back? So the considerations is that 2 crore 64 lakhs cannot be 2 crore 50 lakhs, 2 crore 64 lakhs cannot be 2 crore 70 lakhs. Exactly on the same specification you have to make same building, because the government will not change the specs and tender documents. So that the most toughest project that we have ever done, the tender is fixed, the material is fixed, the money is fixed, the design has to be changed. So on that basis, we change the same footprint and we change the outside, we change the basic porosity of that building, and eventually this project is a part of the complete community projects over there. And interestingly, the 3 years back that we completed this project, that till now the government doesn't have a time to open it. It's still closed, and interestingly, Government has sanctioned 54 lakhs air conditioning for this, it is not inaugurated. Government sanctioned 36 lakhs for boundary wall, it is not yet opened yet. And we try to fight within that spaces that how this money can be actually taken for other projects. So these are some of the projects that we have done. It's a gallery house. So this is a very well celebrated project. I don't want to elaborate, but this is a very interesting collaboration with an artist and architect and a studio. So this project is a garage, truly a garage, and that project has been a gift from our studio to the people of the owner and the collaborations of artist Parthu Dasgupta, who is a ceramic designer. So while we'll be designing this project, we made the whole site as a lab. And we crafted each one, so 264 pieces of brick and ceramic has been made on site and made these projects. So it has a complete porosity that the public at a large can go on top of the floors as a part of the way. And also interestingly, how the steps has been, you see over there, even the society, that we have in our locality, there will be a lot of processions happen and goes over there. These processions also is a part of the city, a part of the neighborhoods, and people take over that streets and they start sitting on the steps. There is no boundary wall. So what we have done is you captured, so generally when you do a project, we put a camera on top and we captured that project. Then when a procession and going the under construction projects, also the people are start sitting on the steps. And that is what it is magical in terms of the idea of space. And this is this is basically a space which is a garage, and that garage is transformed into a various kind of places in terms of various sections and a free book giving ceremony and other places. And this project has been also a part of Aga Khan nominations. We received Parthoda, who is also a very famous ceramic artist who has part of that process. And this is the various kind of ceramics that we have actually made in the site and made this project's process. This is in SEPT exhibitions. That whole 10 projects has been elaborated over there. Professor Sebastian has been gone to the Bashberia and he is actually part of the reviewer of that spaces. And this is the last projects, and I'll be completing in next 4 minutes. So this project is also government sponsored, and this government generally the government give 5 lakhs rupees for each football club. So football club came to our place, and then we designed these places. This influences the whole village, and I'll tell you that the influence of that particular club is so immense today. It's not only that there's so many clubs that we are doing for across the Bengal. The two corporate JSW Foundations and Adani Group has asked us to design a module for 2,000 pieces of those kind of clubhouses for the public utility systems in terms of the across India, and that you're working on it. And that's a power of influence and a small 18 lakhs projects which is sponsored by government, and how it can changes not only that we designed it, we actually influence Panchayat to develop the road, the ghats, and this building has changes the idea of sports facility on over there into that spaces. This is also the part of the final nomination of Royal Institute of British Architects International Design Awards, and also the Aga Khan. And so yoga and other things keep happening over here. And I come to that conclusions in terms of when we designed as a clubhouse, but we never imagined that this particular design has been completely changed in terms of the various activity that we have never imagined. So what happened that the villagers start taking ownership of that kind of places. And the last and the few slides is that it is so influenced today that for elections, they took that picture and start campaigning to win their political agenda and win the elections. And that's the power of architecture can happen. And this is what they feel that they sponsored the whole thing, and this is what result is. And the last, so we designed a lot of houses, private houses, and we designed an absolutely enormous, absolutely beautiful palatial toilets. I calculated in a large luxury houses how many toilets we made and how much money we spent. So we calculated that maybe one toilet can spend 60 to 70 lakhs, and one toilet can produce 3 community centers. So that's the whole idea. And our deal is with the client of those luxury segment that we designed your house but spend 20 lakhs on our foundations or make an one community projects that which is a one third of a one toilet cost. So, Making of Places is a book which is a monograph released from the Architecture Review London, and Manon Moralt came, who is the chief editor, who came to India and Calcutta to review our projects, to understand the influence of architecture, what it can be. And he truly believe, and I truly believe, we don't need a monumental central vista, we need a smaller community projects to influence so many peoples. So that is the Making of Place. It's already in Sept, and it is published in everywhere. And my last slides. So architecture become meaningful when it expands its sphere of influence beyond its physical entity and transforms not only the surroundings but also the life of users, becoming an emblem of a generosity and collective asset. Thank you.
Are there any questions that anybody would like to raise? Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
We can hear. No, not yet. We tried once, but we had a failure incident, and then we could not take it forward further. So we tried to do with the Hunarshala eventually, but the cost of involvement and bringing them in here in Shantiniketan is becoming difficult. So we stopped that idea. So the Bandhan Shantiniketan projects is initially made ideated within the rammed earth, but eventually you drop the idea and make it in brick.
Okay, okay. And one more thing, like in the terrace, you have created landscape there. So do you think that maintenance will not be a problem, Mike?
Yeah, we taken all the precautions in terms of the how to make those things happen from the day one.
Sure.
So we don't have a problems yet, and we are not facing any problems, and they are very happy to do that.
So do you think in urban area, like in Kolkata also, like we can try out, like architects can try out?
So not only that, we proposed to the government in Newtown NKDA that 50% of the roof can be on plantations, and they will get some kind of tax. So my proposal has been taken over, and if you see that the laws today has been part of the involvement
Yes.
of which we have actually advised to them. And today in NKDA, if you have a 50% roof be part of the landscape gardens or whatever on unfloated levels, that has been a part of the taxations, which is part of the law today.
So structure will not get affected.
You need to take care of all those structures and other protections from.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes.
Hello, sir.
Sir.
Can you please introduce
Sorry.
yourself as well? Sorry, I forgot.
Myself, Suman Kanti Roy. I work in IT, Lexmark, India, as a UX designer. Okay. My question for you, suppose in our work-life stress, what I thought maybe it is not connected with the buildings or the, because in IT, all the people are staying in a gray box only, okay, and the temperature of that, because in our India, how the temperature is very going up and up in the summer, but is it possible, or I just can hope that any ecological way to communicate the workspace, not the workspace, what work ports are there in Newtown. It's very much fabulous. I visited regularly over there. Whenever I visited, I feel in the summer time I'm saying, I feel very calm and cool and I do more productive work rather than I go to office and do in the AC. So what thought on about that? Your thought, if you enlighten something, it will be great.
Thank you.
No, I think what I've understood from your questions is that there is, of course, way, is a good architecture needs a good mentor. So always, always there is a possibility that how you embrace the climate change and the sustainability into the building, because sustainability as a word is a very cliche, but the most historical building is the most beautiful building, and they doesn't run with AC. The question is how we approach our projects and how you calculate the climatology factor, the climate change, the temperatures keep growing. Also, the end users. It's also about the knowledge, that how you disseminate those knowledge into the practice is very important, because in most of the cases there is no challenge from our designers that the building can be derived or designed in such a way that without using very, very less AC, it can be also used. So it is also in a very large discussions, but I am saying that there is of course a way, there is many examples in our country that the building has been designed much more lesser air conditioning and a very well maintained, and also it has to be think through in terms of a knowledge. Also you need to educate the opposite side of the clients, because it is possible. So I think in both way it can be possible.
Thank you. We only have a couple of minutes, so we will conclude here. I'd like to thank Abin. I think this talk perfectly sums up the relationship between architecture, community, ecology, design, urbanism, and so forth. 35% of India's population live in cities, apparently, and that number is only going to increase. So I think this is a very pertinent subject, and I thank you so much for this very enlightening keynote. Thank you very much. We'll be starting the next session very soon.